All right, let's go. Kuchenga, I am going to start by just reading out and introducing you with the bio. Is that cool?
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
gorge.
I'm going to out you.
Yeah.
I'm going to out you with the bio. But I feel like, let's be real. We're coming into Trans Creative right now. People been knowing who we're talking to right now. People be knowing who you are. But just in case there is anyone that has dropped off of a planet that's not Earth, let me just introduce who we're with. I am so excited and honored to be with the incredible Kuchenga, who is a writer, a journalist, and an avid reader of Black women's literature as a matter of survival. She is a Black transsexual feminist who seeks to cleave souls open with truth and sincerity, has been published in many online magazines, including Vogue, That's What's Up. That's not the name of the magazine. That was me being like, Vogue, That's What's Up. Harper's Bazaar.
The new urban edition. That's why I got this slang from seeing your Anna Wintour, darling. Do you know what I mean?
She is proud to be called a lady of letters and a woman of wanderlust. She is currently writing a novel telling the tale of a young Black trans girl from North London whose triumphant journey takes her down a path of sexual scandal, substance abuse, and a mission to prove the Jamaican family legend that she is the descendant of Admiral Horatio Nelson. In the years to come, she hopes to follow in the footsteps of Marie Dion and John Pitts to see if she can become a true Afro-Peon. And I'm going to add to your bio the only person that makes a bio not cringy. Kuchenga, here we are.
Thank you. I cringed. That was awesome. What are Gen Z calling it now? Chuggy? I think my bio is a bit chuggy.
What? Who's Chuggy? Who's she?
Chuggy, it's the new thing on TikTok, darling. You got to keep up. Literally.
So we're just going to start out with us reading some work, aren't we?
Because it's us, I think it's great for us to launch in with my most recent piece, which is about the contemporary state of trans literature, basically. And Penguin chose the headline, "The Future is Wide Open, How Trans Literature Came of Age." How private can a narrative be? As a child, in search of anyone as queer as I felt, the LGBT section of the library was my knicker drawer in a public bedroom. I would linger by the shelves, waiting for the coast to be clear. The aim was to grab and run without being noticed. If I felt there was a chance of being seen, I would gamble and simply take any book at random that was within my reach. As a result, I never really found my experience as a Black trans femme in the literature that whispered it was for people like me. Nevertheless, through persistence, I found my people. On bleak days, being assigned male at birth feels like a curse enacted upon me in a janky fairy tale. My happily ever after is a lone star in the distance. But on my best days, the words of Toni Morrison come back to abide with me. She threatens us all with the question, but what if we do choose to be born? This helps me look back on my early childhood and make sense of where my own valiance came from. The literary fairy godmother I longed for would not appear for decades. But in the meantime, I could fall in with a merry band of Black gay brothers. They called me sassy, and I sang contralto. James Baldwin sang bass, Essex Hemphill sang baritone, and Joseph Beam sang tenor. I read their essays, novels, and poetry. There are certain anthologies that brought me into myself in ways I cannot yet explain. I blended a sense of belonging out of narratives that were not my own. The Black women's literature I had at home sustained me in ways I was continually told it should not. The bluest sky is my story. The color purple is my story too. So too is Their Eyes Were Watching God. Black women writers never kicked me off the porch. Thus I was kept fat and well and on my way to happy by brothers and other mothers. I cannot lie and say that the existential literary hugs I received from Alice Walker, Zora Neale Hurston et al. Were not warm enough. I just looked back on my life at a certain point and realized that in spite of all the family lore I had read, I had, in the words of Randy Crawford, never been to me. This all changed when I acquired Redefining Realness by Janet Mock while in rehab for drug and alcohol addiction. For the first time, I did not have to put myself in someone else's shoes. Here was a woman whose life experiences echoed mine with such accuracy that ever since I have seen us as Cinderella sisters in arms. Black trans girls society failed to crush. We reached into the unknown and became butterflies. It was bell hooks and her book, Rock My Soul, Black People and Self-Esteem, that showed me the phenomenon of coming into one's own through reading. Black women's literature specifically was a means of survival in a world that sought to erase and distort my perception of myself and people like me. Having found a Black trans narrative in Janet Mock's writing, I zealously sought more, but was disappointed to find much of the same. It felt like memoir after memoir was telling the same story of being a signed boy at birth before the tale of how we became women for cisgender readers. These books had an intense focus on violence, ostracization from families, running away to the cities where you would meet the screaming queens, Susan Stryker lovingly documents in her documentary of the same name, before eventually having enough hormone therapy and affirming surgeries to settle down into a quiet, stealth life with someone sensible. I wanted to read different, more varied stories than this, but first had to wrestle with why this was the case. Trans people were not given the freedom to write fiction about our place in society because we were so occupied with the toil of proving that we as people were not a fiction. No wonder trans memoir was so heralded in publishing. There was solid political intention in the life writing of Jan Morris, Jennifer Finley Boylan, and latterly Juliet Jakes. It felt like these writers were writing for a cisgender audience, hoping to explain their experiences as trans women in a declarative way that would do enough to stop the repeated probing and shallow questions we are all, unfortunately, beleaguered with. There is often a marked focus on the physical realities of transition, with a defined beginning and end, on one's medical journey of becoming woman and having thus transitioned. I was always amazed at how many times such women have told their stories in the hope that the most savage of investigations into our lives would cease with an increase of compassion and empathy. Take the autobiography of tennis player Renee Richards. No way, Renee, the second half of my notorious life. Renee transitioned in the 1970s and continued to have a career in women's tennis. It's galling that she is an example of former inclusivity and integration, but never brought up in discussions that exclude trans women in sports today. The overwhelming whiteness of these writers was not lost on me. The Black trans women in my purview were pilloried. Our experiences were discounted from any sort of high literary consideration, and thus, as always, the white girls got the attention first. Only in the past decade has it now felt like our turn. With self-publishing, we have been able to tell our stories in our own terms, and all trans literature has benefited. Books such as A Light Through the Shade, an autobiography of a queen by T.S. Madison, The Transsexual from Tobago by Dominique Jackson, and Becoming Hope, Removing the Disguise by Hope Giselle, are remarkable because of their insistence to be heard, for their refusal to wait to be granted the publicity and recognition their lives and careers prove they deserve. Special mention must be made for a trans-masculine narrative that deeply impacted me more recently. Britt Bennett, a Black cisgender woman, so sensitively depicted the character of Reese, a transgender man with whom one of the main characters has a relationship with in The Vanishing Half. I remember reading Giovanni's Room and being astonished that a black gay male, James Baldwin, could depict a white gay male's interior world with such compassion. I felt the same level of astonishment that Bennett was able to tell the story of a light-skinned black trans man without any clunky parallels being drawn between race and gender in an attempt at superficial intersectionality. It gave me much hope for the scope of what is possible for trans literature and the depiction of trans people in literature in the future. This year sees a phenomenal amount of trans literature coming our way. I welcome the ructions caused by Tori Peters' Detransition Baby and its unapologetic discussion of what remain incendiary issues around gender identity and fertility. I found myself giggling at the kink and balking at the violence described. Most of all, I was astounded by how refreshing it is to read a story about transness and womanhood that I do not relate to in any profound way. Detransition Baby wrestles with whiteness and queerness in a way that does not chime with the life that I have led. This is fantastic. Peters has not been hindered with the impossible task of representing me or the plethora of other women sheltering under our particular part of the LGBTQIA+ umbrella. Instead, she has helped prepare the way for an expansion of discourse around trans identities and parenthood. While there has been a transphobic backlash to Peters' long listing for the Women's Prize for Fiction, it has prompted allies to step up in defense. Now, a space has been made for trans women writers in the public sphere. On this side of the pond, the next contender for creating a healthier conversation about trans life will be Sean Fay with her forthcoming book, The Transgender Issue, An Argument for Justice. The fear-mongering that accompanies the increasing visibility of trans people keeps us from wondering how the liberation of trans people might lead to a better world for us all. Both these books have the power to become seminal texts. We also have the highly anticipated What It Feels Like for a Girl by Paris Lees and Transitional by Monroe Bergdorf. The sheer number of books arriving by trans women writers is proof of a disruptive literary urgency. The future is wide open. Hopefully, we can expect even more expansive literature that leads towards the utopian promise ignited by Marge Piercy in her utopian dream of a novel, Woman on the Edge of Time. This feminist sci-fi classic posits not just that a new world is possible, but that it will be gloriously delightful. Trans writers are not only here to let you know that, in the words of ballroom legend Octavia Saint Laurent, this world is for me too, honey, but that they offer new worlds for our minds to inhabit too. Our liberation will lead to liberation for us all. These books are the light we need along the way.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, take the water in. Thank you so much. I feel like we could just close the laptop here and leave it there. But I had so many thoughts when I was listening. I mean, I read it yesterday and it was beautiful. But hearing it is always a different feel. Because, you know, there's some writers that can write, but they can't read out their own work. But you ain't one of them. So, you know. But, you know, we're here to talk about literature, I guess, as part of, like, the Trans Creative Festival. And I just was struck by how you opened the text and this idea of this memoir that is forced upon us and this personal narrative that is forced upon us. I'm someone that is feeling that pressure right now as well. And I'm wondering, how was it hard for you to resist that in your project that you're writing now? Was it hard for you to resist the desire or the want to snap the memoir up and get that and keep that moving?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, Galden was the first media platform to give me like any sort of space. And so I had like such a warm like editorial relationship with them. And so I was able to bring the selves that I wanted to the table. And this was around the trans tipping point, Laverne Coxey era and stuff. So it was I knew that I was like writing with a sense of like political urgency. I met my first agent in 2017, I think it was. Yeah. And she was super cute, super cool, super cute. Like, yeah, we're still in touch. She's lovely. But I could kind of tell that she was like, "Oh, are you up for writing an autobiography?" And so, and I think that's very much what people expected of me because of my connection to like Black Lives Matter and the Bent Bars Project, the prison pen pal service for LGBT prisoners and stuff. So I think it felt like that would be the natural evolution. But the reason that I like balked at the idea was because redefining realness already existed. I was like, it's been done. It's done. I'm like, I can't improve upon that. And also, I loved the way that Janet Mock structured that book. But to have the beginning scenes of like, you know, my gender non-conforming as a young child, and you know, the final, you know, chapters to be centered on, you know, my surgeries and whatever, it didn't sit right with me. I felt like I wanted to go into a new age where one's beginning and ending could and just not be so conformist. Like, it's not quite arbitrary, but so like in my novel, like my currently I dive in to the story when she's like 19, 20. It's on a night out. Do you know what I mean? And I know where it's gonna end for me. I mean, you know, that might change, but there's an emotional point that it comes, you know, it's I'm reading a lot around this Japanese literary concept that I found out through Ocean Vong. I don't want to mispronounce this, I'm looking at my phone. Kisho Tenketsu. So like it's I think it's a structure that Miyazaki uses in a film, where instead of it being like a 3-act structure or whatever, that, you know, there's like a summation of all the different topics and themes, and you know, it's got kind of like a crescendo to it. So, you know, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and I feel like because of my my ancestors, but also my contemporaries, I feel that they've created this space into which I'm compelled to create and experiment and write in different dimensions and different realities and everything. So yeah, they gave me the freedom to not have to write the traditional like trans biography, because you know, the shelves are full.
I don't know, it's quite striking to hear, because I think I'm someone that recently in my writing has gone where it's gone before, because I'm like, this is where we fit. And then you're trying to adjust how to make a memoir or how to make a memoir style thing feel fresh. It makes me think about Paris Lee's book, actually, because I wonder, like it was advertised as a memoir, and to me, I read it as a novel. I'm reading it as a fictional novel. I know it's based off of her life. And I wonder as well, like if she came to the point midway through where she was like, this form and this structure, I need to change it, I need to shift it. I feel like your work, what I love about it is it's impossible to hear any of your work and not hear all the references that you boldly say or subtly say, or like, you know, all the ways that you're clearly so well read in like so much of a canon. And I just want to ask, like, was that something that you always had? Were you always an avid reader? Was it something that you had to learn? How did you find this? And how much is it work?
Like I have a Jamaican father and a Zimbabwean mother. A Jamaican mother and a Zimbabwean father, and I've got Zimbabwe earrings on today, as it goes. And they were. My dad was a bit more bolshy in declaring we are Pan-Africanists and stuff, and they met in Brixton in the 80s, working on the Scrap Sus campaign, and so like Black politics of the time, and I was just raised with like a real deep sense that we were Black in like a diasporic way, that that our Blackness were encompassed many sides of the Atlantic Ocean. And they were big readers, and even within our community, people come around like, Lord, cause you have so much book. Why you not get rid of that? They got so much space and stuff. But it was really like they were precious. And my dad read really quickly, and like really concertedly. They both had very colonial educations. But my mum went to a women's college, went to Hillcroft College in South London, and then went to LSE and was very much involved in many more women's groups. And so her reading was a lot more broad. And so, because of what was on the shelves, I would find myself, like down on the in the bayou, and kind of like whether it's in the southern states or like in Eastern Nigeria or Kenya or whatever, the world was much more available through her bookshelves. And because I was so enamored with my mum as a child, I just copied her, to be honest. So she was reading, so I would read. And I definitely read quite a few adult books of far too young. I read Waiting to Exhale when I was like 10. I've got the biggest poster of it. Can you see it in the background?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you go. So I read that when I was like 10 years
Damn,
old.
okay.
But I was going on like I was a big woman, boo. Like literally, I had opinions. Okay, the boys in the playground could not tell me nothing. Literally. Go. So and then as my harassment, bullying, and abuse increased, I was so grateful for books because I had somewhere to retreat into, and I could be geeky and just live elsewhere, because like my adolescence was so hellish. And also the adults around me were just always so impressed. Do you know what I mean? Particularly because like being Black and dark skinned, it was just so not what was expected of me. So I was seen as the exceptional one, and and then when I went to a more white middle class sixth form, and I was more readily tokenized in this like very bourgeois, I went to Camden Girls and stuff, and I had a phenomenal time because it meant that the violence decreased, but my tokenization increased exponentially. It hasn't stopped. But I remember there meeting their mums and talking in the kitchen with Tabitha about Memoirs of a Geisha. And,
I bet they loved that.
Literally.
They ate that up.
Exactly. They really took to me in that sense. And so I found myself in these like Muswell Hill kitchens, sipping tea or wine and having these really intense intellectual relationships with these white middle class women and stuff. So that was that. It's been ongoing and it wasn't until I got to Sussex that I found my own crew of like Black queer feminist people who and then my reading then took on a more I was more aware of like it being life-saving, like I wasn't just reading these books for fun. It wasn't just this easy breezy thing. I had to make sense of why I was constantly being told that we were the ugliest ones. Why do people treat me this way because I'm fat? Why does no one want to fucking go out with me? Why do men not want to see me until it's like midnight, 1 o'clock? Like what's going on? And so it was through the Black feminist theory that I was reading, principally bell hooks, but also Angela Davis and Clark and everything. That's what happened. That was what my journey through needing to read was.
And now, does it feel like the same need?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, particularly with us being like millennials and everything, like I forget. I get told all the time that people don't read anymore, and I'm like, really? Because I've got different platforms. Audible for me is nonfiction. I have like, this is my writing table. So
Ah, oh my
yeah,
God, I
these are
love
like
showing
what I
people that write at
have.
tables. Mine is a mess.
I'm a Virgo. So yeah, I have, these are my essentials, and I've got some more down there, but most of them are back in Brighton in storage and stuff. And yeah, I think I probably read between 1 to 3 novels a month, I guess,
Woo,
depending on the length.
woo.
And then yeah, I'm listening to books on non-fiction Audible, like I said, and I'm constantly on BookTube as well. I'm constantly on YouTube, like I'm listening to like the books that are coming and getting really excited for like right now I'm excited for Daryl by
Yeah,
Jackie
yeah,
S.
yeah, yeah.
The Other Black Girl, which has just been so hard to get hold of.
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah, Zachary Harris. It's just like, it's a thriller set in the world of publishing. And yeah, the protagonist is a black girl who is the only black girl in the office, and then another one comes. And yeah, I mean, it's
Okay.
I've got chills.
Okay,
I've got chills. I
yeah,
think it's publishing
yeah,
literally
yeah. Well,
drag them.
when you said it's one black girl in an office in publishing, I said sounds like a non-fiction
I
until you.
literally.
But you know, you
Oh
can feel
dear.
it. You can feel it in your writing. You know, you can feel a writer's
Thank
writer
you.
in their writing when you just know that it's not
Oh.
just writing from a point of self. It's also writing,
Mm,
and when it's coming out, feeling all the things that they've taken in over the
mm,
years. And
mm.
I think it's why your writing is so grounding, because it's not standing on its own. You know, it's saying actually here it
It's
is part of.
impossible for me to, because like, say even in what I just read, like the Renee Richards book about the tennis player, I found out about that through Monica Roberts, dearly
Yeah.
departed, last year, because she was on the Marsha's Play podcast. And I was like, how is it that we've got this whole transsexual woman from the 70s who played women's tennis, and no one's talking about that now? Do you know what I mean? And
Mm.
like, um, I feel like I write in communion with others. We're living in a time now where accusations of plagiarism are not really taken anywhere near as seriously. Like, everyone's reproducing content and not citing. So I don't know. I grew up in the era of Lil Kim and Missy Elliott. Do you know what I mean? People trying to bite it, like, you know what I mean? I'm like, no, like, there's certain rules. So I believe in you know, citing your sources and whatever and stuff. But I'm from North London, babes. It's
Mm.
like there's certain things, like, you know, like, don't chat my name behind my back. Do you know what I mean? If you got something to say it to my face. Like, at the beginning of every fight, okay? So if you have something to say it to my face. Do you know what I mean? As it goes. So I believe in that, in journalism, in literature and stuff. You can't come for me.
Only put my name in the text. If it's also going to be in the footnotes, don't hide it. Don't hide it. Don't hide me. Put me in the footnotes. Put me in the footnotes.
Acknowledgements, baby. Stunted.
Right, I'm going to break this up with my writing. Here's my memoir. No. I'm 15. I'm 15, not 14. My version of 15 means by now I have already smoked too many cigarettes, thrown up 6 times on 4 friends' couches, and had sex enough to think I'm an expert sex advice columnist for Glamour. At 15, something had happened where my face started to look a lot older. I felt more confident to swear in sentences, and sneaking into gay bars underage meant that I was starting an accelerated process in figuring out who I was. Almost, most importantly to this part of my story, I had accepted I was someone who was assigned a boy at birth, a black boy at that, a mixed black boy at that, but I also enjoyed wearing lipstick and trying on dresses. The shame that surrounded me at 14 was disappearing. I note this because I think it's important to tell you that when you are reading this, I am 15, not full of shame, not 14. At 15, I had stopped screaming in the mirror. I had bought that black jumpsuit with the first paycheck I received from the cafe. My friends were starting to teach me the importance of eyeshadow and what shades looked best on my skin. I tell you this because I'm not wanting to indulge in how or where I found my confidence. That is not the purpose of this or even the other pages. I want to make a point that sits on the other side of the room. The problem in this story, or the problem when I was 15, was not my own self-acceptance, rather their doubt. Of course, it does not mean that doubt does not creep back in from myself. I have my late teens to come for that. But 15 is a time I so vividly remember holding so little shame, yet that not stopping the reaction from others. I think so often the fixation with gender non-conforming stories is whether or not we believed in ourselves. A neoliberal hijacking of gender politics has commercials and interviews with us giving our best tips on how to love ourselves, if we can love ourselves out of violence. This actually had nothing to do with my lack of belief. I have found that. This has everything to do with theirs. What the fuck is that on your face? The shopkeeper, who has been the shopkeeper all my life, asks me in the middle of a busy store full of my community. Mothers, aunties, schools, friends, the girl that is always on her phone, and the guy that works in a chip shop who 2 years later I will suck off behind the till. I grew up in one of those council estates where the corner shop is also the church, the meeting place, the babysitting corner, the vets, the hangout spot, and the exchange centre all in one. The corner shop, in a place where the nearest grocery store is over 15 minutes walk, becomes the well-populated cross-section of your estate. I have not been back to my council estate in years, and if I was more invested in the accuracy of this imagery than my own mental health, I would have walked back there writing this. I always thought I would. I imagined a cinematic like homecoming where I return back, so I can take notes on the place I spent my first 18 years of my life. Dressed in a chic investigator outfit, I would ignore how hard that return may feel, so I could describe acutely how I think the bricks were more of a rusty brown than a bright orange, or how I think the bus stop pole had a bit of graffiti that said Batty Boy on it that you could not miss. But unfortunately, I chose myself, so I could not do that. Maybe it is resentment, or fear, or something yet to be found, but there were too many bricks blocking me from returning. Yet from my memory, my council estate felt like most stock images of council estates. One of those council estates that on Google Maps just look like spirals and spirals of the same houses copy and pasted over and over again until eventually you were out of it. We had a corner shop, a chippy, and a green that I used to play on as a kid until I became too feminine to feel safe to do that. It took an hour to get into the centre of town on a bus that would try and run every 30 minutes but would always be late. It was a mixture of black, South Asian, and white families at varying degrees of poor, and the odd family that had been promised that this area would be the next up-and-coming thing, yet of course that never happened. What the fuck is that on your face? I pause. I remember I am 15 now. I am embracing the richness of my colourful paint. I am real. It's lipstick, and I bought it with my own money. He does not pause. He says the next phrase almost without a beat, without any pause to remember that he knows my mother, my auntie, my school friends, the girl that is always on her phone, the guy that works in the chip shop who 2 years later I will suck off behind the till. He says, "This ain't a thing we do around here." I had to pause to make sure I heard it right. I could not believe a man I had known for so long would say this to me. I am yet to be of an age where a man's portrayal is like a background score. Status works differently on estates, and I was working so hard to try and survive the growing amount of heckles I would get whilst waiting for the bus, or the growing rumours that I was going into town to be at the gay bars. It was all working because no adults were involved, which equalled my mum not knowing any of this was happening. The this here meaning other people's anger, not my own identity. This ain't a thing that you do round here, son. What I said after this is not the point. I do not want to indulge in the spectacle of my pain. I do not need to describe the fluster in which I grabbed my can of Coke and ran out the shop. I do not need to indulge in the laughter I heard from the girl who was on the phone. I will not tell you about how the person who later asked me to suck him off behind the till of the chip shop years later told everyone about this at school, because that is not the point of this. I'm not going to give you the inspirational path to freedom. I am not going to give you the story on how the shame of my 14 self turned into pride. I am not going to spill all the tea on my tips and tricks to becoming a badass, sassy person that speaks back to your shopkeeper, because that is not the point of this. I am less invested in the narrative of personal self-confidence and more interested in the dynamics between how we all investigate and navigate each other's shame. Instead, I want to note that one comment that is rooted in someone else's lack of self-acceptance and their own fragility in their gender can work so hard to push you back to your 14-year-old self. How one phrase can throw you back into a world of black and white that you had tried so hard to escape. That actually this is about whether or not I have come to terms with who I am. It is more about whether they have come to terms with me, or moreover, to interrogate the very terms we are working with. This ain't a thing we do round here is the point of this chapter, where the thing means not just my lipstick that I was wearing, but resembles all of my gender nonconformity. The thing is trying on that dress. The thing is mimicking the hand gestures of your mothers. The thing is hanging out with all the girls, maybe wanting to be one of the girls. And the here does not just mean the corner shop, but means all of our blackness and our black neighbourhoods. It means the working class estate block that is not given a culture centre in sight. The here means not just my blackness, but our culture and history within it. And where the sun is a way to put us back in our place, making sure we do not move and dream of something else. This ain't a thing we do round here makes me think of territories, almost like a dog guarding a garden from trespassers, barking the phrase repeatedly without force in order to keep you away, except the you is the freedom to escape gender, and the garden is in fact where I stand.
You're bloody savage, you are.
Do you think?
I do. I think you're bloody out of order. Because...
Stop! I was so nervous reading that in front of you, like literally, kind of shaking. I don't know. I just respect you a lot. You know what I think about you, and I don't. Show
oh, thanks. Cheers. Yeah. I mean, the phrase that I got from recovery is that I don't want your pedestal because it's rickety. It's really hard for me to like not see you as like a leading literary voice of our like nation because of this, like just the poetic skill that you have at such a young age is just so delicious and like awe-inspiring. And like I loved the way that you used, you know, like repetition and recurrence, and that you're so able to, you know, carry us with you on the train. Like it's a proper chugga, you know, and stuff. And like I know the editing process that you have to go through in order to put that into the work. Like, you know, of course, like it can turn up straight away most of the time, but a lot of time you have to go back and craft and wield. And so I got such a great sense of you as a sculptor of text. Whilst you were reading though, I can't pretend, I mean, this is a sign of the colonial education that my dad endured and then subjected me to within the home, and that I couldn't help but think about Orwell the whole time, like, because I think you're so able to capture a space so immediately, readily. I was just so there in that shot. And so I was thinking about Orwell's Shooting an Elephant, where he places himself in Myanmar and, you know, speaks about the animosity that, you know, he's receiving of the community and everything. But then obviously with your class analysis and stuff, like, again, I'm thinking of like Down and Out in Paris and London and stuff. And I think like people miss a trick when they try to box us into our identities. Of course, we're experts on our own experience, but you know, there's no reason why you shouldn't be on Newsnight or One Extra or in The Voice talking about the impact of, you know, government decisions on working class communities and stuff. Like, you have such sensitivity and compassion for the people who are enacting abuse on you. Do you know what I mean? So this is happening to you and you're still able to see all the things that are going on with him. Do you know what I mean? And like, yeah, so that was really chugging. And then I also, not at all. And then I was also thinking how, you know, the dictums that we receive, like, you know, that this isn't what we do around here, that's not whatever, and it's just so arbitrary. And like I'm really aware that, you know, the TERFs love using 1984 against us and group split and whatever, and I just feel like I was so ready to read about anything dystopian because growing up trans in a cis world, like, hello, like literally, like, I'm just trying to have a nice day. Literally, I'm just wearing lip gloss. I'm like, literally, like, but you just come up against these, you know, brick walls and, you know, are marched back and punished and suffered, and there's such like systemic like rigor to the way that we're treated. Do you know what I mean? You will be subjected to verbal abuse. That's the way you're brought back in line. Why are you behaving like a girl for? Why do you want to be a girl for? Why do you want to be a girl for? Why do you want to be a girl for? Then as soon as you transition, yeah, so you're a man, like, and stuff. And like, I just feel like we have like a real sense of like just the macro view of oppression, and like not only the source of it, but what its purpose is and what its intention is. And at the best of times, we're able to align ourselves with other people. Do you know what I mean? And so I'm so like, and like, particularly with what's been happening in Palestine in recent times, like, people have really been trying to come for queer people because they feel upset that the pink washing hasn't had as deep as possible. Do you know what I mean? You know, do you know what they do to you? Do you know what I mean? At least in Tel Aviv, we treat you all right. Okay, all right. Like, I've done my reading, baby. Okay, like we can think of, you know, people can do hard things, and well, so I mean, we can think of different. We can think of like different oppressions, like, you know, Black feminism gave us intersectionality and sexual thought as tools. This is analog thought, you know what I mean? We got the practice. So it's not a lot for us to, like, you know, sit back and think, okay, what is the, you know, dystopian end game here?
But then so real. Also, it's like, they're like, yeah, we want settler colonialism, but put a rainbow flag on it and then it's fine. But I think that the thing is that frustrates me is then when, you know, I'm full of so much joy when I hear her speak and write and that. But then I'm also like, despite all of our ability to hold multiple conversations at once, hold multiple things, to write about class or to write about womanhood or to write about these things, we're still not only pigeoned as the trans voice, as if like that can't encompass all these things, but then we're also often referred to as the quote or the backup or the anthology insert to the wider white trans voice. So when I read your penguin thing, you know, I couldn't help but also, like, despite feeling all the joy in the references and the culture, I was like, white trans work is having a moment. You know, let's be real. Like, I think that in the UK, I think that across in different places we've had that, but in the UK, I'm like, we're still not hitting publishing. There is still not spaces where in TV, film, writing, theatre in the UK, we're seeing Black trans work invested in to the same scale. Whereas we can give.
I don't think we will. Sorry to be.
You don't think we will?
No. I've got to rain on the parade. I think that it's part of the British, like, cultural characters. You've got to leave. You've got to leave and be, you know, you need to go to America and, you know, have them like you and then come back. You've got to find somewhere else in the world, incubate, prepare yourself, solidify the brand, come back with like a strategy and with the mystery of elsewhere, and come back and then have that conversation. I think that there's something about being Black and British, and in the arts specifically, that's where my experience really comes from. But there's something quite crushing, I think. And how unconscious is it? I don't know, but it's sneery, it's isn't it? You know, isn't it just it's all about issues, really? And are they really any good and whatever and stuff? So, you know, I think they're just a bit loud. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know, like, is it really, you know? So they employ that kind of humming smear campaign and stuff, and you need to get away from that because it's like tinnitus. Do you know what I mean? It like really keeps you from being able to sit at the center of yourself and produce and stuff. You can't hear yourself think when you're constantly battling like British gatekeepers. It's like what Toni Morrison said in terms of the racism main function is that it distracts you. Like Britain's so good at that. Like it really does distract you from just sitting down at your fucking desk. Do you know what I mean?
You're so, I mean, yeah, I do. I know what you mean, because like it's been impossible for me to write this past year. I feel like there's been this, if I'm keeping it real, like this horrible, I almost wish that I had no slight bit of success or slight bit of moving, because this part now where I'm feeling all the voices and the barriers and the future glass ceilings is like debilitating, if I'm honest. It's like really, it's made it unmovable. And I'm like, and then I don't know how to not turn bitter, because I don't work well from bitterness. Like bitterness can be useful. I don't shame it, but I start seeing contemporaries that haven't put in the reading or haven't put in the thing or can't do this and or doing it in a different way. And I'm like, hold on a minute, like what's going on here? The UK just can't hold multiple things at once. It doesn't want to hold multiple things at once. And so I'm predicting that what's going to happen is we're going to see this trans boom and it will be celebrated, but it's actually just going to be no imagination in the chat, like in what's coming out, you know? Or it will be an imaginative stuff, but from one lens. And I'm just like, I don't want to have to leave to do something. You know, that's what I'm struggling with, is I don't want to have to leave things and keep sacrificing other things because this country can't hold it.
Okay, cool. And I understand that or whatever, but like, I just feel previous generation ancestors being like, okay, Travis, really? Like, I left for you. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to leave. Like, okay, cool.
You little spoiled brat. Get your fucking shoes up, bitch. Yeah. You don't want to pack.
Sorry, boo, but like, and you know, I completely understand that bitterness doesn't motivate you and stuff, but like, maybe it's the way you're framing it, like, because it can just be anger and like it's just it can just be rage. It doesn't need to be this like stultifying oh god, no, I'm just gonna read my work. Oh no. You know, it doesn't need to be that. So if you're not motivated by bitterness, then you know, get your boxing gloves on and punch a wall or something. Do you know what I mean? Like standard, like move.
Well, this pandemic can't have me out on streets. I haven't had to fight back in a year. You know, I've not been walking around. I'm sure as soon as someone calls me something out on the street again, I'll remember my clip.
Yeah, and particularly because that dynamic has produced such great work. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it weren't for that, then we wouldn't have had burgers and you know, like, so I think you're in a very particular space right now and it feels unique, and you obviously, like, the novelty of lockdown has worn off, but like, we've never been through a pandemic before and stuff. And so, you know, you're looking around thinking, okay, like, how do I handle myself next? Like, what does creating look like for me moving forwards into 2022 and beyond? You're already doing it, and I think, like, when you're at the coalface, like, you don't feel yourself working. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, 'cause I forget. I feel so lazy, and it's like, because that's been put on me, particularly as, you know, a child of immigrants and stuff. Do you know what I mean? I dare to have a day off. I dare to spend the day on the sofa watching something. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I wish I could do that. Do you know what I mean? Your age, I had 2 kids. Do you know what I mean? And stuff. So I think we feel this like burden, responsibility. We're also looking after people. Do you know what I mean? We've got a whole list of people who we are PayPaling, reading, editing, looking after, whatever and stuff. So it's really not just about us. Also, like, if we stop, some other cogs in the road have to move or stop too, you know? Yeah, standard.
So I'm thinking, because we've talked to time in a bit, but I wanted to change the tune a bit. I wanted to change it to, so what is, I'm hearing like the next and the thing forward and the pushing through. So like, what does the next step in your creative process and self look like? Like, what are you kind of stepping into right now? What are your intentions for you and like where you're going to be?
I'm about to sit down with I have a non-binary Bavarian who
as we all do, just
and it, I mean, you know, literally, I feel like Liza Minnelli. Do you know what I mean? I think Haunty. Yeah. They are super organized, as is their birthright and everything. So we're sitting down to do some financial planning because, Arts Council funding has been such a blessing, and I'm really happy for that. And I'm going to be looking for a quiet space to go to. To write the bulk of my novel, basically. Like, we've broken the back and we need to steam forward. So I've got my own personal deadline for my manuscript, which I'm not telling anyone else because that's not helped in the past. So this one at a time, it's just me. And stuff. So I feel like once I've delivered the manuscript, I will be in a completely different emotional spot. Like it's an existential transformation I'm about to go through, particularly because I just love having written. There's nothing I love more. Do you know what I mean? When I'm there, but when it's like, oh, there you go, boo, printed, published, read.
When you type that out and you're like,
oh, come on, double spacing. So I cannot wait for that moment. And I'm writing a short story for my close friend Frankie DeCasey Hutchinson, the co-founder of Disc Women, who's got a book that she's putting together on Black ravers and like the rave scene and stuff. Because she started Dweller, which is about Black techno and like creating like
Were you a raver girl? Were you a raver?
Oh my god, literally. I mean, literally, you're not the only one who can be you're not the only one who can be sucking off white working classes. Okay, literally.
You're not the only one behind the chip shop.
Literally, I too was buzzing in the alleyway, boo.
You were traveling to our hood to get the trade. Traveling in.
Absolutely, bitch. I learned from them Muswell Hill mums. Okay, you make them travel to you, and you also make sure you lube before you go out. That's another thing. We stay wet these parts. Okay, bitch.
Do you know what? You can tell a raver in their writing, baby. You can tell it. You can tell it. It's like, I gotta end this on a punch because I know.
Yeah, and also it's that, that communal energy. We are one, reach for the lift, like, sweaty, whatever. Oh my god, literally. Yeah, mate. Daniel, Louis. Literally, I was about as it goes. So I'm really excited to try and capture that in writing because I've not done that before. Like journalistically, I've had such a wild ride, and I wondered because like writing for Vogue was such like I couldn't believe that I actually made it, and I was like, oh god, okay, so what now? Because once you reach somewhere professionally, it's like, oh my god, like now I've done that, and I've been fortunate that I've been able to carve out a space to myself journalistically where I don't feel so. In like 2017, 18, I really got caught up in the, okay, they're all talking about this online, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie said
now I'm going to respond. Now
I've got to respond to that. I got to think piece, and I was just absolutely lost. I was not in myself, in my center and stuff. And then also I read Natalie Ola's Steal as Much as You Can.
Yes.
And I also read Dr. Tracy McMillan Cotton's Thick, a collection of essays Roxanne Gaye's best mate. Basically, they have a podcast together, and
Uh-huh.
they basically speak about the think piece industrial complex. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
fact that, particularly for us as millennials, that we graduated into recession, like no one's got salary jobs and whatever, and we're just writing these 1,000-word trauma pieces. Do you know what I mean? Oh my God, woe is me, I suffered. This is what I'm playing. I was right, and stuff. So having moved away from that because of developing consciousness that they gave me, I'm now able to write things with, I don't know, a bit more meaning. And I'm really feeling the Nina Simone thing, that artists are, born to reflect the times and stuff. And I feel comfortable in writing for developing a Black trans literary voice. I think that's fine. I'm okay with that being, me being one of the people involved in creating that in the current time. But in terms of what I want to write journalistically, I've also loved writing fluffy pieces for women magazines. I think it's so liberating. I love, because I think Paris Lees has got to do that because she's been the columnist at Vogue and stuff, but I wrote a piece on the history of the word badass for the Stylists and stuff. And I don't know, I love my handbags, I love my skincare I'm very much hoping that there's a I'm out in my future I can be the Black British Robin Givana, the Washington Post sort of thing. So if I'm able to do that and kind of have I just want to get older and be a bit more somewhere between Nancy Mitford's, Mary Beard, Robin Givan, kind of, Bell Hooks, Tony, as it goes. I just want to be healthy, a healthy woman going into middle age without too many boys to distract me, basically.
All right, well, pass them over to me. But I think that I also want to put on the request that somewhere in this career trajectory is Kuchenga's weekly TikTok analysis, because honestly, come for the writings, stay for your selection of TikToks. Never disappoint, and very varied, very, very varied. And I can see it in your references, babe. I can see it in your references. And I'd love to see a deep dive into that. So if anyone's watching that can help that happen, it will be for selfish reasons. I just want to see it. I came to your Instagram for the deep reflective writing. Actually, no, I stayed for the TikToks, to be honest. Just that's a full-time job in itself, finding those TikToks.
I mean, I've got to keep myself young and whatever. I'm bodacious still, do you know what I mean? Trying to just stay out here and stay juicy and whatever. But I want to be kind of I want to be like Nigella Lawson, sort of. Do you know what I mean? Still sexy, just so enamored with what the kids are up to these days. As it goes, Allegra, honestly, God, it's shocking. Have you got a new boyfriend? So do I. So the kids are keeping me together, bitch.
Always. All right, baby. I think that's it. Unless you got anything else you want to say.
Oh my God! Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I'm so blessed.
All right, we're out, Alex. We always turn up and show out. That's it.
That's the tea.